She is honest.
Charismatic.
One, she's fucking hilarious.
She is funny.
She's always down for everything.
Ever so loyal.
And a teaspoon of ranch.
She gonna tell you the truth. And it might hurt, but she gonna tell you anyway.
Ask Kadi, the voice of reason.
All right. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Ask Kadi, the voice of reason. I am your host, Kadi, and like promised, the last episode, I told you guys we were going to be in a different setting, which is this for the next episode, which is this episode, because I am on a solo trip. I'm currently in the Cayman Islands, Grand Cayman Islands. And I knew that I would record an episode for you guys when I got out here, although we wouldn't be in the typical setting. So I don't know if this episode is going to be as long as the other ones because I have things to do, okay? This is my last day, so I want to get everything off my to-do list that I said I wanted to do or try out here or whatever. But of course, my number one commitment is getting these episodes out to you guys. And I definitely have so much to share. So although it's not going to be like the typical episodes, it's definitely going to be as much gems, probably even more, because I've learned so much about myself on this solo trip. So yeah, let's get into it. This was spontaneously planned, okay? Very spontaneous. I think I booked it, I want to say 3 weeks. 3 weeks before actually leaving out is Memorial Day weekend. I just knew I felt like Memorial Day weekend would be perfect. Not just because I already got the extra day off, which is tomorrow, the Monday, but holidays have not been hitting the same. I don't know if everyone feels this way now that we're in our 30s or even 20s. Like, I feel like after childhood, holidays don't hit the same. So there was nothing that I was looking forward to for Memorial Day in the States. So I'm like, why not spend it in another country, right? I want to kind of give y'all my thinking and reasons behind me booking a solo trip. There's so many parts to it. One is something I always said I wanted to do. Every time I would hear someone say, oh, I went on a solo trip, I would say, oh, I want to do that one day, but I just feel like I can't, right? And I would say that a lot, but I never really thought about what made me feel like it's something I can't do. But when I was thinking about it, one of the things that stuck out to me is I feel like for the past couple of years, I have been in this subconscious codependent state, not conscious in the sense of I'm solely, like if you know me, you know my personality, I'm very much not a codependent person. And definitely love my alone time, definitely thrive best. I wouldn't say I thrive best alone, but I take as much as alone time as I do take amongst people, friends, family, my kids, like, you know what I'm saying? But lately, I think what it was there was this part about myself that I have been avoiding. I can't say what that specific thing is, but there's been an energy maybe about myself that I've been too afraid to dive into. So a lot of my trips have always been with people, right? And even when I've flown alone, I was always going somewhere, like I was going to meet somebody or I had family at the destination. So it technically wasn't a solo trip. So the bigger part of it was really me just trying to find my new version of joys in life, right? I feel like, although I felt like I've been in this weird codependent energy space where it's like, oh, when I'm not alone, I have to be around people, like to do exciting stuff. My alone time often consists of me being home. I wouldn't even say watching movies, but still actively doing things, recording my podcast, cleaning up. Like, you know what I'm saying? It hasn't really been me alone and doing something spontaneous, doing something fun. You know what I'm saying? It's always been, oh, I like my alone time, honestly, because it's the only time that I can fully focus on the things that I need to be doing, right? Which is cool and great, but at the same time, you also need to be able to be in your own space for enjoyment, not just for responsibilities and tasks, right? So, yeah, although I've been in this space, I've just been feeling like the past couple of years, everything that used to be so exciting for me has become so underwhelming. And I can't tell if it's like age, maybe maturity, or if it's just you know, we've been in this weird space since the pandemic, since 2020, but things that I would be like super excited about, like, oh, I'm about to link up with my friends, which is like, I'm always excited to link up with my friends because as adults, we don't get to see each other often. But as far as just like, it's this thing. I've been having an itch for something, and then you know, you be like, oh well, such and such is coming up, or such and such birthday is coming up, or this is coming up. That's the itch. Like that's what I need to scratch. Maybe when I get there, and when I get there, then I'll get that itch that I feel like I need to scratch or whatever. And I'll get there, and granted, I will have the excitement of just bonding with the people I love. But when I leave, there's still this emptiness. Like, no, that wasn't it though. That wasn't the itch that I was craving or whatever. So I feel like this solo trip, I'm not gonna lie, leading up, like I booked it 3 weeks before leaving. I booked it and then I told my job and then I prepared this stuff for my daughter. Like it was just like, bro, stop overthinking stuff. And at that time, bro, I was really in a space of like, my brain was hurting. Like just thinking. I don't know if you ever heard of like decision fatigue. Like we're constantly in a space where we're making decisions, whether it be big decisions or small decisions. What am I going to eat today? What is my plan next 5 years from now? What am I doing tomorrow? What time am I going to take a shower? All these like constantly thinking. Your brain does not know the difference between the big and the small, and it just becomes overwhelming. So like booking this trip was one, me getting out of that cycle. Like we should book it and figure it out later, right? And of course, I'm always big on, I know God wants it for me, because when I do stuff like that, it definitely gets figured out. It was as last minute as this trip was, it was not stressful coming, like for it to pin out and come together or whatever like that. So I know God wanted it for me. But yeah, the days or weeks leading up to this trip, I felt like what I used to feel like the day before, like a school trip, how excited you would be, like to the point that you can't sleep and stuff like that. It's so funny because my daughter, she gets like that whenever she's excited about anything that she has planned for the next day, whether it's school, whether with her parents, whether with like hanging out with cousins, and she acts just like how I used to act. Like she would like be in the bed, kicking, screaming, like I'm just so excited. And I used to do that all the time. So she has really been somewhat of like my guru when it comes to just like getting back to the basics of happiness, right? Like even though we're older, I feel like children are such the purest version of the human experience. So seeing how they respond to just the basics, right? It's like, geez, I should be able to tap into that. And I feel like the older we get, we create complicated paths on how we're supposed to obtain happiness, how we're supposed to obtain peace. And for real, it really is simple. Now, I know this idea of a solo trip seems so grand and so, but which it is. Like, I'm not saying everyone can just pick up and do a quick solo trip or whatever like that. But I feel like for me, it was my way of like shocking myself. Like, I feel like a lot of times to gain a new perspective of your reality, you have to do something extremely uncomfortable to kind of shock yourself out of the autopilot that we live in day to day as adults, as humans. Like, I just feel like the way society is set up, things are so fast paced. We don't get the time to just sit and think and process. So everything is just like autopilot. So sometimes you just got to do something to just shock yourself. So as excited as I was about this trip, I was extremely nervous. I was anxious. Like, I mean, believe it or not, as much as I travel, if you know me, you know, and I say this a lot, I'm terrified of flying, right? So especially when I'm flying alone, it's like anxiety, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, to do that, it was like shocking myself out of the autopilot space I was in, and also giving myself something to look forward to. Now, I picked Cayman Islands because I was looking up places. I knew what vibe I wanted. I didn't come here to meet friends. I know I had somebody reach out and say, oh my God, can you show me how to do a solo trip? Because people never want to come with me. And I'm tired of waiting on people. I want to book it myself, which I know is a big major reason why people do solo trips. It's like, bro, I don't got time to wait for nobody. But in my case, that wasn't it. Like I travel all the time with my friends. vacations. I've been on it all. Like I traveled with my child. This was intentional for me to be solo. So I wanted to make sure I went somewhere that I wasn't gonna make no friends, because y'all know me, I got a problem. Like I would make a friend with a frog, and next thing you know, we kikiing the whole time, and then they cling on to me, and we inseparable like the whole trip. I was like, I want to make sure I'm going to a place where I really could sit in my own energy, right? Because I feel like who we think we are is really not our true state of being. It's our reactive state, right? So no matter how comfortable or how much you've known the people you're around, whether it be a relationship, your family, you are still in a reactive space. That is how we operate as a human. Like, this is why people who have disabilities or illnesses like sociopaths and stuff is because they don't have the ability to get around people and adjust to their energy. But if you're a normal human being with a healthy state of mind, you naturally get around people and you not consciously alter yourself, but you're reactive. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's like, I could be right now, I'm in my hotel room, I sleep by myself. But if I was with somebody, let's say on a trip, I'm sure people have experienced this. Maybe somebody be quiet in the corner and I'll be thinking like, damn, are they bored? Should I find something for them to do? Should I, like, you know what I'm saying? So even not on a trip, but in our day-to-day life, what is happening to the people around us is truly affecting how we respond to life and how we are perceiving what's going on around us or whatever like that. So I feel like that was the idea behind me doing a solo trip, to really come back to self. Like, get out of the reactive space. I was reacting to work. I was reacting to motherhood. I was reacting to everybody needing me. I was reacting to people calling me. It was like, no, it's hard to make decisions. It's hard to process your present moment. It's hard to understand your next steps when you are in a reactive state, because then you're making decisions that are not solely based on your soul desires. It's based on what you feel like you're forced to do. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because of what is going on around you or what your role is around you or whatever. So when I looked up Cayman Islands, I actually had my cousin who visited here before. I was supposed to come with her last year. She was like, yeah, this will be the perfect place. And it's so funny because when I got to my connected flight in North Carolina, I got to my gate and I just seen a bunch of people, and it was giving just a lot of young Black turn-up people. Not that the race has anything to do, but I'm like, hold up, this is not giving, it's going to Cayman Islands, right? And my heart dropped like, Lord, because I was thinking in my head, even though I did the research, I'm like, it is Memorial Day weekend. Grand Cayman Islands, I know, has become very popular as far as like people traveling to in the US. So I'm like, maybe I fucked up by booking it during Memorial Day weekend, because, probably everywhere is a turn-up place at this point. But thank God I got to the gate and it was actually a flight to Punta Cana leaving out. And then my flight was coming right after. So I was like, whew, okay, because I didn't take this trip to distract myself. That's one thing we got to check on ourselves when we're doing the spontaneous, exciting things. Knowing when we're doing it to distract ourselves and knowing when we're doing it to find ourselves. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like my purpose for this goal was to find myself. I feel like trips that I've took in the past, or my habit of I'm about to book a flight, was to distract myself from discomforts in my present situation, right? And I didn't want that. I want to be able to find myself so that whatever energy that I tap into while I'm here, I can carry with me back home. You know what I'm saying? You see so many people when they post when they're coming back from their trip, they're like, oh, I'm back here, back to dirty Jersey or back to New York or back, and they instantly feel that heaviness. Everything that they were trying to avoid, that heaviness hits them as soon as their flight land. And it's like, I'm beyond that point, not just in traveling, but in anything. And I think that's why a lot of the things that I was saying I don't get excitement from anymore is because a lot of the things or a lot of the hobbies that I've had were stemmed from wanting to distract myself from present discomforts and not really me doing stuff that is to find myself. Like before this trip, my cousin, she put together the Parkinson's, she didn't put it together, but they have the Parkinson's walk in Central Park, and she registered my uncle who suffers from Parkinson's disease, and she invited me. And I was so excited. Like, I was so excited to go. Like, I know I live 2 hours away from Central Park. I woke up 6 a.m., like, and travel all the way to Central Park to meet her. And I felt like, because it was so different from, like, usually I'm meeting up with people to go out to eat. I'm meeting out to go to brunch. I'm meeting up to hang out and kiki. Like, you know what I'm saying? But that was something that was so intentional to kind of what I talked about in my last episode, your values. Like, community means so much to me. My family is my community. So to show up for her, especially is something as sensitive as, what my uncle was dealing with, and her as his daughter having to support him through that. I felt good, like I'm doing something that is something I truly value, to show up for my community. And then just the greater good of the cause of just so many people in the world suffering from Parkinson's disease, to be a part of that. We walked, it was me, her best friend, her mom came with her sister, but me, her, and her best friend ended up staying a little longer, and we just walked and we talked. And we learned. Her best friend, it was my first time meeting her. I love meeting new people because you get a chance to borrow their perspective of life. And it's not even like intentional, like they're coming like, I'm about to teach you about my perspective to life. But I think I have this obsession with meeting new people because you just get to I don't know, you get to study them. And I feel like when it comes to the people that we already have in our lives, it's hard to study them because we have already given them a script of who they are based on what we know about them through our years or length of experience that we have them. But when you meet new people, that's another way to get yourself out of autopilot, because you don't come with any preconceived notion about them because you don't know them, right? And I thought it was so interesting because we'll just be talking. We was kikiing about everything. They ended up, afterwards, I had to meet up with a friend because when I'm in the city, I try to kill two birds with one stone. So meeting up with my cousin for this event, but I had a great friend of mine that I have not seen since the pandemic. And we kept saying, we're going to meet up for lunch. We're going to meet up for lunch. And I'm like, listen, since I'm already out here after this, I'm going to meet up with you. So my cousin and her best friend, they was like, we're going to walk. Let's walk. We're going to walk you there. And it was like a good 30-minute walk or whatever. We walked and like we're talking or whatever like that. And she'll do stuff like, as I'm about to like cross the street, she'll stop and like hold me. I don't know. It was like so motherly. I had to stop and tell her like, you are so motherly, and she don't have kids. Like, it was so interesting to me. Like her instinct of, I don't know, something happened. I feel like my headphones were dirty. She's like, hold on, pick this up because you might trip and fall. It was just such a great experience. And I feel like, getting that version of her, like I just met her that one time. We have not spoken since then. So every moment is not like I'm gonna meet new people to keep them in my life, but to borrow people's perspective and study how they move through life and just see how life treats you based on how I feel like you get a good idea of how life treats you or how God treats you based on how strangers treat you. Because I feel like when it comes to the people we have in our life, how they treat us, we assume that it's because of what we bring to their life. It's an exchange. Like, okay, I'm your sister, so this is what you do for me. I'm your daughter, so this is what you do for me. I'm your lover, so this, you know what I'm saying? There's not the same level of appreciation. Not that you don't appreciate the people in your life and how they treat you, but when strangers do something for you, not even anything big. Like when I'm like, it was instinctively, she would just be in the thick of telling a story and be like, wait, hold on, a car coming, hold on. Like just grab me, making sure like I'm a kid, like literally don't run out into the street. I don't want you to get hit. I care for your life. I don't want anything to happen to you, even though I met you today. I feel like you take those perspectives and you just be like, that's life. Because I can't say she was doing that for me because it's like, oh, she wanted to make sure I stayed alive because she loves me so much. No, we have not talked since then. I mean, it's my cousin's best friend. It was my first time meeting her, like I said. But I feel like if we take those experiences that we have with strangers and apply it to what God wants for us, what life is meant for us, we won't be so hard on ourselves about the things that we want to accomplish, right? We feel like we have to prove so much in life to gain the things that we want out of life, but it is so simple. Like, just like, what's my favorite quote? the life you want wants you to, right? And that leads me to my plane ride over here. So I got on a plane, which my first flight was to North Carolina. And literally, I was so anxious, super anxious. I'm always anxious before a flight, but then it's my first solo trip. I'm just like, Lord. So I sat next to, it was a mom and her newborn on her lap, and she had like her 4-year-old son sitting by the window seat. Now, because I booked my flight last minute, I usually pick the window seat because a big thing that helps with my anxiety with flying is being able to look out the window. And it was last minute, so it was no more window seats. And I think they were trying to charge an arm and a leg for you to get a window seat. I'm like, child, let me just test my luck. I'm like, it's probably not a lot of people flying out, so I'll probably get my seat. But sure enough, I got there and it was a full flight. So I was like, all right. I was like, let me just try my luck. So I'm like, it's a mom and a newborn. I was like, she will possibly want to sit on the aisle seat because I had an aisle seat. Because what if she got to get up with the baby, blah, blah. So I get there and I was like, do you want to sit in an aisle seat? She was like, oh, no, I'm good. Now, she was very polite about it, but in my head, I'm like, this evil woman, like, she does not want me. But granted, it was her son sitting at the window seat. And then once I saw how excited he was when the plane took off to look out the window, I'm like, come on, Cuddy. Like, clearly, he really wanted the window seat. There's no reason why she should have given up that seat to sit on the aisle seat. But, the whole flight, we didn't talk. It was no interaction. She had the newborn. I looked at the newborn, smiled a couple of times. But after that, had my headphones on, was minding my business. And it was an hour and a half flight. And literally within 20 minutes of the flight, first of all, when the flight took off, y'all, I did something I've never done on a flight, and that was cry. And it wasn't fear. It wasn't like, it was just a release and an excitement. Like, wow, I'm really doing this. I cannot explain the emotion that took over me when that flight took off, but it felt so good. I was so happy. I was so grateful, not just to be on that flight going on this solo trip, but for the first time in a long time, I really experienced a rush of gratitude of just what life has looked like me for the past 4 years. I want to say 2020. Like, just all the growth. I'm not even talking about the materialistic stuff, the mental growth, the spiritual growth, the self-love, all the stuff that I have really gotten the opportunity to focus on. Like, in the past couple of years, I was just so proud of myself, like, which is something that's so hard for us to do. And when I say us, I'm really speaking to the people who just grew up in a different life, like grew up in a struggle, grew up in a hood, grew up with lack of resources, lack of love, lack of anything. We've all lacked something in life. And this is why we go through life with all these goals and purposes to gain that back. But for someone who operated from a state of lack and is always trying to overachieve, to overcompensate for the lack, we don't really celebrate how far we have come as people. You know what I'm saying? We don't get to celebrate it, one, because we're still constantly on the move. You're not satisfied. Once you make it to one step, I gotta fix this, I gotta do this. And social media don't help as much. Just to add, I've been kind of taking away like just all the self-help type of memes and stuff. I've been trying to unfollow them and just like, because I feel like it puts us in a constant state of, I gotta fix this about myself. I gotta learn this about myself. And we don't get to stop and just show appreciation and gratitude for how far we're already made it. Like, take a beat. Like, you know what I'm saying? You've done enough healing for the moment. Take a beat and take that in, right? And there's also that fear of someone coming and snatch it away. Like, I know everyone has it in their goals. When you think about the things you want to achieve, it's always materialistic stuff. But I urge you guys to stray away from that and really make it more of spiritual things that you want to gain about yourself, emotional things, emotional intelligence that you want to gain about yourselves. Because just because the world around you changes, or just because you level up materialistically, does not mean that that emotion that was tied to your lack is going to leave you. And I had to realize I struggle with that because a big part of my anxiety, I've been experiencing extreme anxiety for the past, what are we in 2024? So like 3 years. And that has come from me obtaining more materialistically, but still having the mindset of lack. Like somebody is going to come and snatch this away. I'm not even gonna lie, y'all. I had even fears of like, oh my God, my life is about to end. Like the more I level up financially or materialistically, or even, just get better with things, I would feel like, oh, there's no way I'm meant to experience this level of peace or abundance long term. It's probably about to be over, or like life is probably about to end for me, or just living from a space. I was just talking to a friend yesterday. I'm so glad she called me because our conversation went completely different than what we expected. And she was saying like, bro, I got this apartment. She's in law school and she's working at a law firm now, I believe as an intern, and she's making good money. She was like, girl, can I tell you, I have not even decorated my apartment yet. Like we were talking about like how we were growing up, how life was for us growing up in East Orange, and just now how we've achieved so much. And she was like, girl, I have not even decorated my apartment. And I fell out because when I said it took me a whole year to feel fully, like I talked about this too with my best friend. I'm like, bro, I don't even feel comfortable hanging paintings up on my wall because we feel that someone is going to come and just snatch it all away. So you're constantly in this state of anxiety of, I have these things, but I still feel like I'm not going to have it for longer. Somebody can possibly snatch it away, and it creates this anxiousness. So straying away from the things you want to obtain materialistically and really thinking about the peace you want to receive. You know what I'm saying? So that as you start to elevate in life in any way, you can enjoy it. This is why they say rich people really don't be happy, for real, because it still requires the mindset aspect of it. It still requires the spiritual, the emotional intelligence aspect of it to really enjoy the best parts of life, which is another reason why I booked the solo trip, because my anxiousness, my mental exhaustion that I was experiencing was really from me trying to figure out my next steps. Like with being anxious with everything going on around me, and it's still my default way of dealing with just present stresses is trying to create future goals, right? And that was stressing me out so bad. The reason why I booked the trip was to one of the reasons I booked the trip was to commemorate where I already made it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I have reached a point in life where I can take a solo trip and I'm not breaking bank, and I'm not like, you know what I'm saying, putting myself in debt, and I'm not pulling out of my responsibilities, whether it be bills, whether it's like my daughter, the things I need to purchase for my daughter. Like it's really free money that I can do. And I feel like a lot of the times we see people who have done these things and we think that they've reached some magical peak of life that we have yet to reach. And reality is a lot of the things that we want to do just requires a decision to do so. But it also requires you to get out of the mindset, get out of the energy that you are in. And I feel like even though I've reached certain heights financially and responsibly and emotionally, I was still operating in the lack mindset that traumatized me from young. So it's like I'll be in positions where I can do stuff and I wouldn't do it because it's like, no way. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you still have that old mindset in your new life. So booking this trip was also to celebrate that. Like, girl, while you are about to stress out about how you need to make it to this next level or how you need to accomplish this goal, can we celebrate where we are now? Because this is what they mean about gratitude. This is what they mean about getting more greatness in your life, is having gratitude in the moment. It's not just sitting down and being like, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this. You know how you show gratitude for the things that you have? You celebrate in it. You know what I'm saying? When you show gratitude for the people you love, it's not just, I'm grateful for them. You can tell that you're grateful for them by how you celebrate them, for how you show up for them, how you express your love for them. Same way with life. You show gratitude in your present moment of life by letting life know, hey, I enjoy you right now. Hey, life, and you enjoy you enjoy your present moment by using the resources that you have been blessed with in that moment to celebrate it. And that was me doing this trip, right? Booking this trip because I can do it. The current version of you is dependent on your current perspective, not your current reality. So that kind of touches on what I was just saying. Like, we think what life looks like now is based on, we can start listing out a bunch of factors that's like, oh, I can't do this because of this solo trip, another example. Like a big part of why I will always say when I will hear people take solo trips, like, I always wanted to do that, but I can't do that because I'm a mom. Because I'm a mom, like, you know, I feel like even though, you know, my daughter, she gets to go spend time with her dad, she spends time with her grandparents all the time. So whenever I'm not away from my daughter, I really am just either doing the things that I would do to distract myself or sitting at home and, you know what I'm saying, trying to distract myself with tasks and stuff like that. But it's like, why not use that time you already get to yourself to do the things that make you happy? Don't put it on her. And it's crazy because she's been like, we've been FaceTiming like throughout this trip. And yesterday she FaceTimed me and she was like, Mommy, today is like the best day ever. It is the best day ever. Uncle made me a turtle shell. She had a cardboard box. He like cut holes on the arms and like cut a neck piece out. She drew all over it. And it was her first turtle shell, but it was a turtle shell. And then she was like, and Daddy, he put food coloring in my bath pool. So the pool was, her bath was like pink. And she was like, she just kept saying, this was the best day ever. Today's the best day ever. Okay, I'm going to call you back. I got to go. Blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, every time that I see her, like I said earlier, she's like my little guru. Like she don't even know that she be really teaching me about life without teaching me. But just seeing how she experiences life, how she's just like, I'm just so happy. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that was a reminder. I feel like my daughter always reminds me, sis, I'm here for my happiness. You better figure out yours. You know what I'm saying? She's always reminding me that, and through the way that she operates. So as I'm telling myself, oh, I can't take a solo trip because I'm a mom, whatever that means, I was like, yeah, that's just my perspective. And based on whatever perspective you are in are the options you're going to get in life, right? If you're telling yourself, I can't do this because of this, that, then wonder why you can't accomplish certain goals or why you can't accomplish a certain desire in life. Look at what your current perspective is, right? It's so crazy because even what the example I was giving earlier about just leveling up financially in life, but not feeling like I still couldn't do certain things. It's like because I still had the perspective of lack that I've struggled with in my past, like, you know what I'm saying? I was still operating in the present. So because of that, the options that I needed to really tackle certain things that I wanted to tackle were not options for me. Like it didn't, like when we talk about creativity, we're not just talking about people who draw, sing, rap, creating our reality, right? We are creating our reality, and for every circumstance, there is an infinite amount of options, but we are only limited to the options that our perspective allows us to have, right? So think about people, we think about people who commit suicide. We think like, what would make them want to do this? Like, look how beautiful life is, or look at all the things that they have. But once again, life only presents you the options that your perspective allows it to see. So when we think about people who are dealing with depression, it's not that they overlooked all the greatness that they currently have. It's not that they looked over the current perspective that they already have. It's just that that was the only, it's not that they looked over all the great things that life had to offer them and made the choice to, you know what I'm saying, commit suicide. Is that at that moment, that perspective that they had only presented that option. Another thing I kind of wanted to tap on, which was a big part of me doing this solo trip, and a lot of small things that I do throughout my life, is to do something to lock in a new version of you, right? So like I was saying earlier with social media, you know, we're in a self-help, self-healing generation where we're always throwing out these words and these ideas as far as meditation and stuff like that. But once you come up with or realize the version of you that you need to tap into to get the things that you want, or when you realize that you get that new perspective of life, it's not as simple as just knowing, like, oh, I realize I struggle with this, so I got to start doing this. That's it. Like, now that I know, I can do it. Like, it doesn't work like that, because although we have that reality, or we're able to really acknowledge where we're falling short or what we're struggling with, it's not as easy to get ourselves out of autopilot and do something different, right? So I feel like the best way to do that is to kind of shake yourself, like I said earlier, out of autopilot and do something new. Do something that you would normally not do to lock in that new version of you, right? So if I say that I want to, I'll just use my current, like a part of me doing this solocation is I've realized the past couple of years, I have been in such a restrictive mindset. Like, I don't know what has gotten me into this mindset, because I have not been like that. Like, I've seen a lot of people been posting about this, like how they don't like to post on social media that much anymore, which has some good parts to it. But I realized I have become a much more reserved person, but not necessarily from a positive standpoint. Like, it's been a shyness that I've had, and the shyness has really come from me being very overcritical of myself, overthinking things, like to the point that I have been crippled in tackling the things that I want to tackle, doing the things that I want to do, even recording my podcast, like overthinking the outcome, or just over criticizing myself, right? And I have realized, like, I've been in this space for a long time, but I haven't been able to pinpoint what it was. Like, I just would know that I won't be in the mood, or I won't be as driven to do certain things. But lately I've been able to sit with myself, and that's how I came to the mindset, like, oh, I've been really being overcritical, and I've been really like limiting myself. Like, and I've been thinking about situations that's happened in my life that's made me be that way, that really didn't have much to do with me, but more of a narrative that I've been giving myself in my head. So once I came to that realization, that was cool and dandy, right? Because it's like, yes, now I know what it is, so I can stop it. But no, because being even in states that are not good for us can still be comfortable. And when it's comfortable, it's it's what's gonna naturally come easy for you, right? It's not gonna be easy to do the opposite, even if the opposite is the better option, right? So to kind of trick my brain out of autopilot is I create a new profile for this new version of me, right? So like I said earlier, old me has never done a solo trip. It's just something that I've never considered doing. It's on top of just like the energies that I've been battling with or whatever. So I was like, to commemorate this new version of me, of just being more out there, like, and just heal. I don't want to say healing, but just like kind of getting out of that dark space that I was in, or that hermit stage that I was in for the past couple of years. It's like, I'm going to do a solo trip to kind of, this is what this new version of me do. Forget what I said I would never do, or forget what I was too afraid to do. This new version of Khadi takes solo trip. And now you can assign that new version of you to the new actions that you want to start taking, right? So it becomes less anxious and uncomfortable and more exciting, right? Because you can kind of start to look at yourself from a third perspective, like a bird's eye view. And it's so interesting because as people give you compliments, even with me posting on my solo trip and then telling certain people about it, they're like, wow, like, oh my goodness, like, I always wanted to do that, or I love this for you, or like, instead of like, at first it was uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but it's like, I want to kind of double down on it, like, yeah, I would never do this, and I never did this. It's like, instead I embrace the compliments because they are complimenting this new version of me, rather than trying to, I think we do that a lot when we create a new version of ourselves, like, oh, I'm a person that's eating healthy now, right? And then someone compliments you on it. Oh, I see you eating a salad now. We try to double down on it, like, yeah, well, I usually eat unhealthy, and I'm just trying, I don't know, it's just something that, no, you eating healthy. Forget what you was doing yesterday, or the day before that, or the day before that. Today you is a healthy eater. Embrace the reactions you're getting from your surroundings about it, and sit in it, because you are now this. Like, you don't need an excuse to reinvent yourself. And I think that's why we delay our process. We delay the growth, is because we feel like we need an excuse, or we need someone to validate the new version. Or sometimes it feels like imposter syndrome, or like we frauding, like, You know what I'm saying? Like, even I did book this solo trip. I am here alone. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm here in this suite alone. But getting the compliments, it was kind of like, you want to double down? Well, I usually don't do this. Oh, it was kind of like hard. I was nervous too. Like, no, I did that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it kind of puts you in this, it tricks you out of that version of yourself that you've been feeling like you're stuck in. And for real, you're not stuck. You're just one decision away from the life that you want to create. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I feel like we rambled a lot. It's not our typical podcast. Let me see if I can pull from one of the anonymous. I found it here. All right, this is from an anonymous person. From Miami, Florida. Okay. Hey, Kadi. So my child's father, who I'm no longer with, has repeatedly not held his promises to not show up for our child. He provides for her, so he's not a deadbeat. However, he makes promises to see our child, but never keeps them. At first, I thought it was just with our child, but I learned this is the pattern he has with his other children as well. And that inconsistency of keeping his word to others has been a character flaw I noticed even when we were together. What's your take on how I should respond to this situation? Okay, I love this topic because co-parentship is hard. Whether you are in a relationship with the co-parent or not, your kids is really, of course, it's just a sensitive part. And I don't want to say unfortunately, but as mothers, I think what we have to often be reminded of is that child is just as much the other parent's kid or the father's kid as it is yours, right? And I know legally that's the case. And you know the quote, mama's baby, daddy's baby. But like, when I say that, I'm not just talking about the legal aspect of he has ownership of her just as much as you, but emotionally and spiritually, this kid is a makeup of you two, right? And they have their own experience. So a lot of the times, especially once a relationship is over, the way that we have the option to just disconnect once the relationship is over. I don't want to be with them because this version of them or this, what I was dealing with them, I couldn't handle. I feel like we got to be reminded that the kid can handle it, believe it or not, because that parent is a part of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, as moms, as difficult as it is to not intervene and want to protect our kids emotionally, especially from that other parent, there's a level of disconnect and distance we have to have with that experience so that the kid can learn from themselves who that parent is and experience however it's meant to be experienced for them without you overthinking what it is for you, right? Like in your situation, I'm sure, like you said, you broke up, a part of why you broke up with him or a part of why you guys aren't together could be because he was a person that's inconsistent of keeping his word. And as a lover or an ex-lover, we have that option. If I didn't birth you myself, once we are done, we are done. On board, men and women. When you are done romantically with someone, it's easier to walk away or it's easier to experience not easier to experience the discomfort, but it's easier to make the decisions based on the discomfort or the bad characteristics that they have, because this person is not really a part of you in the same sense a child and a parent is a part of each other's lives, like spiritually. So one, allowing your child to experience while you experience what they're supposed to experience with their father, in this case with your child's father, and you only maintaining the space of motherhood, not trying to be father, not trying to overbear and protect her, not trying to lie for him, not trying to cover up his flaws for her so she's not heard. The earlier she gets to see who he is and get to make the decision as she get older on how she wants to navigate that situation, the easier things will become. But when it comes to him too, I would say for your role as mom, and as not even as mom, as how this affects you is expect him to show up as who he is and mother accordingly. I think setting ourselves up for disappointment by trying to create that idea of who someone should be. Oh, you're a father, you should show up this way, you should do this, you should, is what kind of keeps us in that cycle of not just disappointment, but unhealed space, right? I feel like there is space for co-parentship even with character flaws like inconsistency, right? When we parent according to who the person is, not by overcompensating for where they lack, but also setting your standards for that, right? So it's like not wasting your time, and I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but not overwhelming yourself by criticizing him on how he should be showing up or how he shouldn't. Believe it or not, we all have an ideal way of how parents should show up, how we wanted our parents to show up for us, and how we feel like the parents of our children or the co-parent of our child should show up. But there is no rules. There is no rules. Becoming a parent is just two individuals coming together with their own perspectives of life and tackling parenthood from that way. The only part you can control is how you choose to show up, but also creating that, creating a perspective, not just a perspective, but creating a standard around who you're dealing with, right? So like you said, with him being inconsistent with showing up, what would really lessen your stress about this is not feeling like you have to overcompensate when he doesn't show up the way he needs to, or when he makes promises and he doesn't. Allow him to break the promises. Allow your daughter to see that he broke his promise, and allow her to react. I'm not saying that, okay, she's going to see how he is and she's going to say F him, because that might not be the case. Once again, as children and as direct connections, spiritual connections to the parents that create us, it's a way that we can deal with, not that we can deal with, but like we got to remember the whole purpose of life is for us to come into this world and learn whatever we have to learn and go through whatever we got to go through. And that our children isn't exempt from that. They're going to have the lessons they're going to have to learn. They're going to have to deal with the emotional exercises and the emotional lessons of whatever they're meant to experience in this life. And however that's supposed to show up for them, allow it to, right? She might see her dad's inconsistencies and be good with, okay, he only shows up once out of the 100 promises that he makes. And you just be prepared as the mother and the version of you to show up in support of whatever she needs from you in those moments of realization, right? So I feel like I was all over the place, but there's so many points to dealing with like inconsistencies in co-parenting. And one is focusing on your role. And when I say your role, not just your role as mom, but what do you bring to the table? What are your strengths as a mom, right? I'm the lover, I'm the nurturer, I'm this, whatever that is for you, doing a lot of that and not trying to overcompensate for what's not being done on the other end, right? And also detaching yourself from your child's experience, being a supporter, but not trying to control, you know what I'm saying? Because even though, yes, we go through hours and hours of labor and carry these kids for 9 months, they are very much here to have their own experience and not to take on what our anxieties of. I could think, I talked to someone about this before and she was saying like, you know, I just feel like I don't want my daughter to have daddy issues because their dad is, I had to hush her mouth. I almost grabbed her lips, like, be quiet. Because don't assume that you know what an experience is going to cause in your child's life. Let it unfold and just be prepared and be flexible to jump in however you need to jump in as mom, not as savior, not as person that's supposed to overcompensate for everyone else and how anyone else in the situation is falling short, but just show up as yourself and being that, right? And it takes a lot of belief in God. I don't know how anybody who's a parent not have a relationship with God, because these are the worries that we have. Like, it's one thing, it's crazy because a lot of the stuff you'll deal with in a relationship with somebody, once they become, when I say deal with, you ignore, or you be like, you can numb yourself through, or you could, when you see that then person show those same qualities to your child, it's unbearable. you can't numb through it. You can't ignore it. You can't whatever it. You know what I'm saying? And I think if that should teach us anything else, not that we should overcompensate by making sure our children could avoid that, but sit with ourselves and realize why we didn't deserve that version of that person, or allowing ourselves to stay through situations or experience certain situations and stick around. You know what I'm saying? I feel like if motherhood doesn't teach you anything else, before it teaches how you want your kid to be loved, I feel like how we react to some of the down parts or the negative things that our kids experience is that level of emotion that we should have for ourselves, right? So, yeah, I hope that answered your question. I would say just tackle it by expecting him to do who he has consistently showed you that he is, and mothering accordingly, not by overcompensating, but supporting. You know what I'm saying? And don't ever underestimate what you think your kid can't handle. Because like I said, our kids are a makeup of the parents that made them and the generations that they come from within those parental lineages. So what you can't handle because he might not be a version of parenting that you experience, understand that she can. She can. And she's meant to, because we are all karmatic experiences or karmatic manifestations of our parents. And who knows? She could probably be here to teach him. She could be here to be his lesson. Allow that to show itself however it may. And just do your part. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining in on this very chaotic episode. I'm about to go out. I'm actually about to go try out another restaurant. When I say Cayman Islands, this is the first vacation I've ever been on. When I say I went to different restaurants every time I ate, and the food has been 1,000 out of 1,000, like 1,000 out of 10, like so good, it's crazy. Like a tear drops from my eye every time I take a spoon of food. So I'm about to go try out this other restaurant. I'll see y'all in the next episode. And if you have not already,